Greetings from Chris Upton. Right. Houston, we have a problem. I can't see any of your chats. Any of your comments. Can you see the comments, Susan? Oh, Karen's first in the house. That's probably why. I can see their comments. Good evening, Karen. Good evening, Jeff Harraway. Good evening, Tracy Dodds. Good evening, Graham Allison. Not Tables Collars, Patrick Curran, Steve Pace, Michael McLaughlin, Tim Weston. All the same bloody people, isn't it? I'm trying to get new people in here. Not you lot. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. I think I'm going to have to change my sex before I start getting new people on, don't I, really? Anyway, I've had a shave, especially for all of you. I think I don't look. I think I look fat-faced. Well, I am fat-faced, to be honest. But that's another question. I mean, Sue said the other day, walking down the road, I saw a real fat bloke, and he was struggling to walk. And I said, "Is that bloke as fat as me?" And she said, "Yes, about the same." You'd think your wife would go, "No, darling, he's a lot fatter than you." But no, she doesn't. She doesn't. I tell her all the time, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. I'm going to stop this shit, because if she thinks she can say it the way it is, so why can't I? It's sad. It's sad. Then she says to me today, "Oh, your brother came in the shop today. He's had 37 motorcycle accidents. He's only got one eye. He's put his nose through the back of his frickin' head." She said, "You look so similar." So fucking similar? What? If I grew a moustache, would I look like Hitler? Honestly, I'm triggered. I'm bloody triggered. He's 2 years fucking older than me as well. Never mind. Never mind. Evening, troops. Oh, Susan in the house, obviously, is back in the bed. So what I'd like to talk about tonight is dog training. I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk about my darling wife and how beautiful she is. I just want to talk about dog training. So the first thing I saw is Dog Training College. Let me read it out to you, shall I? Dog Training College. How to become a dog trainer. Download your info pack to discover what you need to master to become a dog trainer. How much you could earn as a dog trainer. That's right up there on the list, isn't it? Real life stories from trainers before you. Exactly how to get started on turning your passion for dogs into a successful career. You'll discover 4 core areas every dog trainer must master. Your earning potential as a dog trainer. It'll surprise you. Real life stories from trainers who took the plunge. How you can get started on your dream career. Plus exclusive bonuses to help achieve your goals. So, let me ask about qualifications, shall we? Should we talk about qualifications? Remember years ago, you have to fill in a CV, and you had to send it in to your future employer, and you wanted to work in a factory, pulling a lever, and it was a mundane job, but it was pulling a lever, and it gave you a wage at the end of the week. And they wanted you to fill in your CV, and you used to put, I got my bronze, silver, and gold in swimming. What the frickin' hell difference did that make to your employee, unless you're working in a swimming pool? I got city and guilds at woodwork. I did a woodwork course, or a gardening course for 3 weeks. Is it really important on what you've achieved, or how you put yourself out there as a as a person looking for a job? Are you polite? Are you friendly? Are you good at what you do? Does your employee think you're a credit to the business? Are you punctual? Do you turn up on time? That's an important thing. Do you go sick all the time? So those qualities in their day Just started back with a bit of training today after 4 weeks. Everything was 90 miles an hour. Alertness and obedience goes through the roof with a break. Go on, Michael. Why did you have a break after 4 weeks, Michael? Abigail French, good evening to you. Are you new to the group? Martin Lawrence, Denver Skinner. Good evening, Chris and Sue. Karen Evans, I looked at one. They fucked me off when I questioned how they teach absolutely everything you need to know in 14 weeks about handling a single dog. Exactly. And I go on about Keith Erlinson, don't I? Because I'm a Gundog trainer, and I came through the Gundog training. Sue, can you close that door because it looks like Ouvre la porte. See my little bit of French, my tiny little bit of French, you know. Michelle, non de pleur, what was it? What about Jane Birkin? She died, didn't she? Je t'aime. Who remembers Je t'aime? Holidays as such a thing. Michael McLaughlin, 4 weeks off. He's been on freaking holiday for 4 weeks. What does he do for a living? 4 weeks off for an holiday. Anyway, going back to this dog training college. Here's the info. Pet professionals, dog lovers. You totally love dogs and have always wanted to turn your passion into a rewarding career. You're already in the pet industry, but you want to grow your income and diversify your services. Oh, I see. You become a masseuse at the same time. You're not for humans, for dogs. Stop being dirty, you lot. You're already a dog trainer, but you want to gain recognized accreditation or upskill. How about that then, eh? And what are we going to do to upskill? Who are we going to go to get the accreditation? Kennel Club? Nope. The Kennel Club say you're not supposed to use discipline as little as possible, says. Good evening, Julian Lees. Good evening. I just like to inform everybody I have a parcel in the post from Julian. And he's lost me. Is it MBE or CBE? What did you say, sir?
OBE.
OBE. Does that mean obese? Honestly, Chris Upton, OBE. I thought he was trying to spell obese. Or is it short for obese? Honestly, we got sent to him at Corleone Gundogs, haven't we? Yeah, so going back to that dog training thing, what qualifications do you need? What qualifications? Well, what about a little bit of history? What about what have you actually achieved? How long have you actually been training dogs? If you're teaching people how to get dogs through into competition, Michael McLaughlin says it's amazing me how many people fall for it. They do, but they're desperate, aren't they? That's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem. They are completely desperate and they fall for it. 37 pages. Need to know information includes explore whether a dog training career is right for you. It takes a special someone to be able to change the lives of owners and their dogs. Could that someone be you? Could that be you? The 4 key pillars of running a dog training business. We'll break down the 4 crucial areas that all successful dog trainers must excel in. How much real dog trainers make. If you're considering dog training as a professional career, it's important to understand how much income it can provide. This part may shock, surprise, and delight you. How you can become a professional dog trainer in 14 weeks. 14 weeks. That's all it takes. 14 weeks to become a professional dog trainer. We'll give you the overview of step-by-step journey to starting the career of your dreams. Get instant access. Oh, honestly, I'm so excited. They want my telephone number. Honestly, what's inside? What's inside? Oh, it's there's a word for it, isn't there? There's a word for it. And I don't know if I want to actually say that word on a live feed, but it's like when I was 16, 17, I was chasing the girls. And some of those girls wore very scanty clothing. And there was a word for it, wasn't there? Something tease. And is that the same, really, when it comes down to the fact that dog training college, why would you need to go to college if you can learn to train dogs in such a short period of time? 14 weeks. 14 weeks. Is it guaranteed? Do you get your money back if you can't give you a brilliant income after 14 weeks? I don't know how much, mate. It says Dog Training College has supported over 16,000 plus and counting. And they've got these hats on like they've been to university, as if they've graduated, and they've got certificates. And a lot of the women, for some reason, in the photos have got pink hair. Does that not tell you something? Does that not tell you something? Is it not for the unicorn people? Pet people these days look for that qualification, as they don't understand the natural ability of a person needs to be really good trainer. But the problem is I say it the way it is, don't I? So let's just say I've just done a mixed videos of a lad from Northern Ireland who phoned me up on the phone, and I gave him tuition. I didn't charge him for that tuition. He's a member in our Corleone group, and he's keen. And I gave him tuition, what to do for a dog that's been on the shoot, not listening, running in, and he wants to put the steadiness on the dog and have the control on the dog. So I broke it down into simple stages, and I asked him to go away and work on that. And he sent in some videos. So I showed it, and I think it was called his homework or something like that. He shows his homework. And in that series of videos, he goes through exactly what I showed him to do. But first, I had to understand what the dog was like. Because if it was a soft dog and it had never had any discipline or any correction, then I might have been giving completely different advice than I would with someone I'd sit and listen to for a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes or whatever, an hour, whatever it is. And then I give the advice. Now, it's so much easier seeing the dog doing the misdemeanor, doing it wrong, him doing what he normally does, and then me stepping up and telling him what to do. But what I've got to do is I've got to tell him what to do, and then he's got the decency to video it and put it up for the group, send it to me and put it up, and I put it up in the group. And if we put that sequence of videos up for Joe Public would go, oh, why is he shouting at the dog? Not understanding that he's allowed the dog to go on a shoot, part trained, and the dog is now getting self-rewarded behavior. So it's always going to be harder on a dog that you've allowed to push the boundaries or take over. And yet, when you watch the video and you have an open mind, you can see the verbal cue was firm. Some people would have freaking jumped out their skin if somebody had shouted at it like that. The dog accepted it. The dog learnt from it. But when we go back to the first video where he gave chastisement and gave the verbal cue, that set the dog up for success, because the dog then realized when he changes his tone, he ain't happy, I'm going to behave myself. Now, that doesn't mean we want everybody to be screaming at the dogs all the time, but isn't it part and parcel of the dog training world of explaining to people when and how to give discipline? If we don't learn when and how, and all dogs are different, who's going to leave us any reference in the future? That's my point. Has anybody got anything to say about that? Or do you just want to talk about women in the water? Women in the water. Nobody wants to say anything. 24 people in there, nobody wants to say anything. 14 weeks training to be an expert or understanding animals' behavior, communication, and learning abilities. People spend a lifetime trying to understand. Absolutely spot on, Michael. Absolutely spot on. But that's the same scenario, isn't it? You cannot go into a job without reference or a CV, right? If you've got no qualifications and think you can become a rocket scientist. And yet, what did they do down Cornwall? They lost that rocket, didn't they? It went AWOL. So do you really need any qualifications to be a rocket scientist? Of course you do. You need to know where to press the button to make it take off. Nothing wrong with that video to normal people, but the snowflakes, it's a no-go due to the way the world has changed. You're spot on, Graham. You're absolutely spot on. And that was what I found was so important about what we were talking about on the, was it Sunday, Sue?
Yeah.
Sunday private feed. The importance of people like Gary Wilkes. And like I was saying earlier, I never said nothing about freaking that thing starting, did I? And like I said earlier, as a gun dog trainer, I followed Keith Erlinson. Controversial, said what he felt, upset a lot of people because of his open conversation. But he said it the way he saw it. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I agreed with so much of it because we need people to be upfront and honest. And then, in all the years that I've been gun dog training, I haven't come across anybody that's topped him for the bottle and the knowledge that he had. So, for the experience he had, he was like a wise old owl. Fantastic bloke to talk to. Took time to educate you, took time to give you that information, but was very diplomatic in some ways, but controversial when he wanted to be. Because he liked to play people a little bit. And I liked him for that, because what you saw is what you got. If he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't like you, he'd tell you straight. And he'd treat you that way as well. And that's what I liked about Keith so much. Now, in all the years that I've been in the gun dog world, and there are some good trainers out there, don't get me wrong, and there's some trainers that I actually would recommend to people as trainers, but publicly, I don't feel that I really want to, for one reason. They've not been open and honest with people about discipline. I know they use discipline, but they don't want to talk about discipline openly. And don't you think that's why we're in the situation we are? We're in that situation because we have not got people who are so-called film stars who says, yep, I agree 100% with Chris Upton publicly, not in private. What they do in private is up to them, innit? But I agree with Chris Upton that what Chris Upton does and says, he wants people to get the best out of their dog. He wants to show them plenty of gameplay. He shows them when to use discipline, and he doesn't fear the planks out there who get on his back. He actually laughs them off. He actually exposes them for what they are if they continue to attack him. But if they just come in and say, I don't like his method of training, that's their opinion. Off they can go. But if they want to get into a debate with me or they want to get into an argument with me, I'm up for it, aren't I? I'm up for it. But I don't go looking for it. I don't go looking for it because there's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough hours in the day to go looking for it. So my job is to educate, and that's what I've tried to do. But I really feel that when somebody sends in a video of them disciplining a dog, I should be totally honest and say whether, in my opinion, that person went in too hard or too soft or not, or not enough verbal cue. And that's what people fear these days, isn't it? That's what people fear. They fear the backlash from the so-called 2-minute wonders, isn't it? The dog people who want to become dog trainers overnight sensations, instead of been down the old school way, come up through those ranks, learned how to be a better trainer, and then passing it on. Because we could rely on the old school, couldn't we? But were the old school better than we are now? It's debatable. It's debatable. But were the old school honest? Would the old school show you discipline like they were using? Or was it only skirted around and brushed upon in all the books you've ever read? Because before the internet came along, and that's not been here that long, what else did you have? You had a few videos, the odd video, and they were dated. And you had more modern videos where everything is PC and no one shows you any discipline because of the change. There's a lack of principled people who stand by their word these days, may be frightened of losing fame and money. Graham, you've hit the nail on the head again. The issue is society makes it difficult for them to stay in business and admit that discipline is part of it. It's a little hypocritical, but understandable. I totally understand, Michael, what you're saying. But is it understandable? Because if everybody took the right stand, we'd have an army, wouldn't we? We'd have a strong army, the same as the positive only gangs. The positive only gangs are only powerful because they stick together and back each other. And people then fear taking them on. But I've noticed lately there is far more people out there talking about discipline compared to when I first started talking about discipline. Now, is that because they still see me standing and think, well, he said it? Like you say, Karen, they skirt around it. Exactly. They skirt around it. But I'm all open for anybody with a better way of training coming and showing me. Actually coming and showing me. Or I'll go to them and they can show me how to train dogs to a very, very high standard without using discipline. Yes, but it takes a bit of balls and not all of them have it. That's the problem, Michael. That is the problem, isn't it? It's having the balls to stand up for what you believe in, your conviction, isn't it? To be able to stand up and face the madding crowd. Because you've seen I've had to take the shit, but guess what? Have I carried on sticking to what I believe in? Yep. Have I challenged them? Yep. Have I said, show us better? Show us the way to do it, and we'll do it. Now, Keith Erlinson was really, really clever, because I've never, ever contacted Keith and he said, you're not being hard enough, Chris. He's never been that direct, but he said it in a roundabout way. But what he's done, he's made you think. And I'm not going to name a guy now. And let's see, before I name the guy, does anybody think they know who I'm talking about? And I'm not talking about a gun dog trainer. I wish he was a gun dog trainer that I could salute and stand up to. But who do you think, of all the dog trainers that I've ever listened to, that I rate the highest for having the bollocks to say it the way they see it? Who do you think that trainer is? And I've shared that trainer to many people in the group, and many people follow that trainer, and I see many people liking what he says. And I think he stands above so many others. Well, I can't tell you who I can endorse more. Chris Fraser, perhaps? Nope. Chris Fraser is a very good trainer. Chris Fraser is a very, very good trainer. I don't always agree with everything he says. Michael McLaughlin, Collarman. Who the friggin' hell's Collarman? So Steve Pace hit the nail on the head. Dale McCluskey. Frickin' hell. He's dead and buried, isn't he? Got to be Gary. Yep, Steve. Karen. Yep. Gary Wilkes. Gary Wilkes has been there, done it. He's gone down that positive route, realised it didn't work, followed that road in the 70s, 80s, and realised it was nothing but a con. And that's exactly why I support him so much. It must be Mr. Baseball Bat. Yeah, freaking sure, isn't it? Eh? Must be him, eh? Freaking ain't got a freaking clue he ain't, is he? He's out with the fairies as well, isn't he? He likes to talk the talk. They bring him in if there's a dog bite, but they haven't brought him in lately. Not ever since he said what he said about Sticky Vicky. Sticky Vicky. I love Gary. His posts are just fascinating. The thing is with Gary Wilkes, Karen, he's an academic as well as been there and done it. And he's another one who will challenge people. He will name names. And he'll name names not because he's being spiteful, but because of the hypocrisy in the dog training world. Because of the freaking scan artists, the con artists that are out there. It makes us angry because so many people have been misled by idiots in the dog training world. And of all the dog trainers that I've ever watched, and I've watched thousands, Gary Wilkes, with his knowledge, his understanding, but his intellectual skill is absolutely above everybody else I've ever watched. And I think it's really important that if you come across someone that you appreciate, I think it's really important that you endorse them. I'm not saying that, in my opinion, Gary could train a gun dog better than me, but the knowledge that Gary's got and the things he's been through, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with so much of what he says. But I thank him from the heart for having the bottle to say it and put it up there for the world to see. Because without people like him, and I don't say this very often, he is a maverick in the dog training world. And that's important. And I put so many people onto you over the years for you to watch that are like-minded. We don't train all the same. Someone said Chris Fraser. Karen said Chris Fraser. I really rate Chris Fraser as a dog trainer. The psychology and the knowledge that Chris Fraser's got is fantastic. As a people person, I perhaps don't agree with the way he deals with people sometimes. But he's gone private. He's gone over to more private, hasn't he, than he was non-stop on the internet at one point. And each to their own. But as a trainer, I could not knock him as a trainer. Absolutely fantastic trainer, knowledgeable as well. And I believe we need to be honest and open when we talk about people. And someone mention Dale McCluskey. Dale McCluskey is an ex-police officer, got qualifications for being an ex-police officer. I think he was useless as a police officer, but I don't honestly know. But if he was any different as a dog trainer, as a police officer, he'd be freaking useless. An absolute laughing stock. An absolute laughing stock. And that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. And you look at people and you think, well, who's got the biggest following? It's not all about the biggest following, is it? Because some people say it the way it is and they'll never get the following that other people will get who play the game, who promote themselves and know how to work the system. Because Peter Pan of the dog training world has proved that. Now, who is Peter Pan of the dog training world? Come on. We've got people in here, 27 people in here. Who is the Peter Pan of the dog training world? But you wouldn't know if you don't watch it. You've got to watch it. You can't just give out a good marketeer can sell anything with a bit of knowledge. Yes, Stevie Page is on the ball, isn't he? Zach George, exactly. The crazy American dude, Zach George. Zach George. So if we said you go by following, you can't go by that, can you? You can't go by that. And at the end of the day, people have taken me in a different direction in dog training by watching them and studying them. But they've only taken me so far, because if they're not gun dog people, then I might not want to go down that road for a number of reasons. So if you've got protection person who does protection dogs, I'm not going to want the same thing as a gun dog trainer. Now, I think it's sad that here's this, old fat bloke in Cornwall who says what he feels, says what he likes. If he gets the following, he gets the following. If he doesn't, he doesn't. His videos have been viewed hell of a lot. I know that. So that's the proof is in the pudding. But at the end of the day, it saddens me that there isn't a gun dog trainer out there that has been totally open and honest about how they train, the way they train, and showing it for Joe Public to see and talking about it as well. There's good trainers out there that I rate, and I know they use discipline, but they don't want to talk about it. Now, dog training is not all about discipline. Nobody wants to talk about the gameplay in the fluffy world, do they? About Chris Upton, although I might not agree with him with his discipline side, his gameplay is fantastic. Now, across on the new housing estate, I had a problem the other day when I shouted at my dogs for barking. And I got a bitchy season at the moment, and the dogs are playing up a little bit. So I go out there on the odd occasion and go, bloody shut up, you bloody dogs, you. And they might bark because they would like to plater through the kennel bars. And it's a little bit frustrating. She's kept away from them. But unfortunately, the kennels are in the same block. I haven't got 45 acres where I can keep the bitch down the end and the dog's away from her. And I don't want howling and I don't want barking. So if there's any barking, I go out there and I shout at the dogs. And I've always done that. But now we've got this lovely white picket fenced freaking housing estate in the back field. There's a woman that walks around with a Rottweiler with a muzzle on. And she has to keep it glued to her side. And she's fighting it all the time when she's walking it because it's totally out of control.
She needs to put the muzzle on.
And she's like a blubbered whale with thick, dark skin. And her husband is exactly the same. Because I think they're semi-retired and they live in the garden. And they've got their back door open all the freaking time on this new housing estate. And as soon as I say, well, shut up, you bloody dogs, she goes, don't be fucking horrible to them fucking dogs, you cruel bastard. So at the moment, we're having neighbourly dispute. What's the word? Frickin' friction. That's what the word is. Friction. Now the thing is, because she was mouthing off again the other day, I said to her husband, you need to put a muzzle on there. And he freaking kicked off. Now, I don't care if he kicks off. I'll make it uncomfortable for him. Because I have every right to tell my dogs to shut up. Now, if my dogs were barking all the time, I could be in trouble with the dog warden. I could be in trouble with the council. I own my property. It's not rented. They can't chuck me out. But I believe in, I don't want the other people on the estate to hear my dogs barking all the time and it become a bad habit. Now, I have the right to tell my dogs to shut up. But in today's society, some blob of a woman who looks like she's been sitting on a freaking beach naked all her freaking life, right? She's got rhino skin and she's got a dog strapped to her freaking side. They walked past my gate the other day and he gave me the dirtiest stare. And I thought, don't retaliate, Chris. Just let him go past. Just don't say nothing about his mouthy wife that he can't control. And that's the problem in life, isn't it? If you live in a situation where your wife tells everybody she's not happy and she's learned to get away with it and her husband can't control her, he needs to muzzle her. As simple as that. Anybody's opinion? Do you think I'm being crazy? There's a lot of people out there who love your videos, Chris, but not many of them will back your corner. That's their loss. Yeah, that's it, Steve. Absolutely, Steve. And I don't care because I believe in. I was putting videos out there before Patreon to educate people, to show people you can train a dog with discipline and correction at the right time. But it was so important that the gameplay was involved as well. And I didn't bring in the gameplay in. I've been using gameplay for all those years. Because if you can get a dog to want to do it, you have a far better dog than making it have to do it. But there's certain rules in life that have to be adhered to. And call me old-fashioned, call me a dinosaur, but if my missus was hanging over the garden fence out the back, screaming at people for walking their dog with a muzzle and not letting them have a loose lead, I'd go, Sue, get yourself in, please, and stop it. But I know my wife wouldn't do that because my wife's been brought up decently and she hasn't got that attitude that everything she thinks is right and anything anybody else does is wrong. But there's no way as a man would I want my wife hanging over the freaking garden fence screaming at people. I'd go, come on in, darling, let me sort it. Call me old-fashioned, eh? Call me old-fashioned. So, there you go. Has anybody else had a good week? So now, if the dogs bark, do I not go out there and tell them to be quiet? What do you think? We've got 29 people in the house. What do you think? If your dog was barking out in your garden and it was non-stop, would you go out there and tell your dog to be quiet? And if someone came to your house and told you what you're being nasty to that dog for, would you not tell them to fuck off? Be yourself, says Graham. Exactly. I'm not changing. I'm not changing, Graham. That's the whole point. I am not changing. If the dogs are playing and there's a little bit of play fighting and they're growling and playing, then that's different. If the dogs are fighting, I'm going to go out there and tell them to be quiet. If two people are having a fight outside my house, one is a man and one is a woman, I'm going to go out there and say, hey, come on, pack it up. This ain't the place to have a fight, is it? This isn't acceptable. I do not want to see a bloke hitting a woman. If there's two blokes outside kicking the shit out of each other, I might stand there and watch. But it doesn't mean I'm going to intervene. But if there was three blokes kicking the shit out of... But if there's three blokes kicking the shit out of a bloke, and I could see that someone's going to get seriously hurt, I'd have no hesitation in going out there and say, hey, that's enough, pack it in. There you go. That's what Karen says. And Karen's perhaps got the same thought pattern as me. I'm going to help the woman. Of course you are, Karen. Because I would not stand still. I don't care whose fight it is, who caused it. I would not stand still and allow a man and a woman to be fighting outside my house. I'm going to step in and go, hang on, pack it in, you two, please. If it's two blokes, Karen said he'd video it. Exactly. If two blokes want to have a scrap, two blokes, hang on, let's be like stags. Let's put our heads together and have a scrap. Get on with it. But if there's three blokes and one kid's getting his freaking head pummeled and people are jumping on his head, I'm going to go out there and go, hang on, lads, hang on, that's enough, for God's sake. Now, is that interfering? Well, it is to a certain extent, isn't it? But I'm just being like the point that what I think is acceptable. Am I going to go, I'm not a police officer, I'm not going out there? By the time you phone a police station here, fucking it's all over. Somebody's dead on the street. Now, where I come from, people get stuck in. You know, this Queensberry rules and all this shit. Fucking, I've never heard such shit. So what I'm saying is, Kieran, better to film a cat fight. Help the woman if it's two blokes and video. Exactly. And does that make you a more caring person? I think it does. And I think it's important because you want to see nobody getting seriously injured, do you? But if two blokes want to kick the shit out of each other on the street, get on with it. Fucking crack on. You can easily say that's enough. I've had enough. Now, if the bloke said that's enough and the bloke was jumping up and down on his head, that might be a different kettle of fish. I might go out there and go, hang on, mate, that's enough. You're freaking killing him. But I got the balls to do it. But if someone's dog is barking as they're walking across the new housing estate and I hear it, I don't open my window and go, tell that dog to fucking shut up, you fuckers. No, I keep myself to myself. But I try and moderate my dogs for the betterment of other people. I could say, I was here first, fuck you lot. My dogs can bark as much as they like. So now they put themselves in a position, haven't they? Because if I now said, right, okay, let's reverse the scenario. Let's get the dogs barking every fucking 5 minutes. Let's wind them up like coils. Let's have them all barking.
Then you have me going out there going, well, you lot, shut up.
See
And
that?
you'd be shouting at me.
See that? See that? I said to Sue the other day, I've got to put the dogs away. She said, I'll put them away. I said, why? She says, because they're barking. They're barking because the bitch is in season. They want to plant it. They want to plant it. So at the end of the day, what Sue did, she put the dogs away. That's the right thing to do, isn't it? Because you want to keep friendly with all your neighbours. I've never had fallouts with our neighbours on a regular basis, except the bloke across the road who bought our friggin' house. He's the nosiest motherfucker you've ever met. He's got nothing else to do in life other than watch the gate.
He don't even pull his curtains.
No, he don't even pull his curtains. He'd miss something. He just loves to sit there looking for something that he disapproves about. It's a sad world, isn't it? When you can't get on with your own life, isn't it? You can't get on with your own life. What is the world coming to?
They're old, though, aren't they?
That's the problem. Sue said they're old. I'm getting freaking old. I'm getting grumpy, freaking old, and don't give a shit. So, okay, then I've gone on for a rant tonight, and so come on. We got 43 minutes. We've had 29 people here, 6 thumbs up. Come on, tell me something I don't know. Tell me something that's going to upset me. Tell me something good. What's been happening with your week? Keep being you, Chris. Thank you, Tracy Dodds. Thank goodness for that, eh? I just try to be me, don't I? I don't go out of my way to actually rubbish other people and other people's opinions and other people's way of life. But I say it the way I see it. Get Sue on to no. Sue wouldn't cope with her. Until Sue flipped. And when Sue flipped, she then wouldn't cope with Sue. So Sue would be passive for absolutely ages. I say it the way it is. I say it the way I see it. There was no dogs being abused on my premises when I shout at my dogs. But if you don't shout at your dog and you think that's cruel when people shout at their dogs, I think you should keep your opinion to yourself. I'm going to report you to the RSPCA. Well, that's only going to wind me up even more in it. Get on with it, you stupid cow. But that's my background of where I come from. I'm trying to become a better person. I should have said, listen, you dried up old prune. No, I shouldn't, should I don't know what I should have said. Because if...
Keep your nose out of my business, thank you.
Oh, that's what Susan said. Keep your nose out of my business, thank you.
Get on with your poor life.
Get on with your poor life, honestly.
And take that muzzle off that bloody dog, the poor thing. True woman, you.
Oh, honestly, Sue's getting teasy now. This is it. She's getting teasy. She's getting teasy. And the problem is, I used to like that field. I used to like that field. What if there was children playing and making noise? Would she still be nosy cow? She screamed across the freaking whole housing estate as if like I was killing a freaking dog. I'm reporting you to the RSPCA. I went, fuck off. Because why should I put up with such shit? What are the RSPCA going to do? Excuse me. Were you shouting at your dog? Yep. Why? Because they were barking. Thomas says, well said, Susan. Well said, Sue. And that's the problem, isn't it? So what are the RSPCA going to do? Go home and make a report. He shouted at his dog because they were barking because the bitch was in season. Right. We advise you don't have a bitch in season. Exactly. The world's gone mad. The world's gone freaking mad.
Only certain people in it, and then interfering old biddy bodies.
Interfering old biddy bodies. Chris, you ever get a dog that you get more response from signals than voice commands when you're figuring them out? Don't really. Good evening to you, Leanne Vine. She's retracted it. She said and she's retracted it.
Yeah, she's not finished.
All right. Whoops. I thought she was going to say, I'm sitting here naked. I'm sitting here naked. Whoops. I'm on holiday topless in the Bahamas. And not the tables collars. Chris, have you ever had a dog that you get more response from signals than voice commands when you're figuring them out? Didn't mean to do that. No, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Not tables Carlos. You ever get a dog that you get more response from signals than voice commands?
No. Signals left, right, back.
Not really. Not really. No. Not really. Anyway, we have 31 people in here and 8 thumbs up. And we haven't got many questions because Sue could be reading out the questions. She could be reading out the questions and giving me these questions. So there isn't any. Honestly, it's hard work tonight, isn't it? It's hard work. So, are you into politics? Have you seen this latest thing about the government? Richie Sunak. He's a boy, isn't he? They now want to give compensation to people who were in the military, who were gay and got thrown out. They want to give compensation to those people who suffered. Isn't that sad, isn't it? Isn't that sad? Do you think when they come round to giving compensation for teachers who hit kids in the 70s, do you think I'm going to put my hand up and get a compensation? I'm having a bit of that. Well, a number of those canes have my name on it. Right? Well, I mean, there's bound to be someone go, I remember that freaking Chris Upton. He used to enjoy discipline. He was in there that often. Oh, Denver's on one. I think I've bitten off more than I can chew with this new pup. She's 11 weeks old and hard as nails. Lovely. 11 weeks old and hard as nails. How can you tell she's hard as nails, Denver? In what way? You're not disciplining her at the moment, are you, Denver? 11 weeks old, for God's sake. How do you know she's hard as nails? It's a great subject to talk about. Perhaps we'll talk about that on Sunday, eh? She fights with my older dogs. Do you mean she thinks she's in charge and they let her play? They let her think she's winning because she's no threat. That's the whole point, isn't it? If you think about it, it's a good subject to talk about. Girl power. This is it. Yep, girl power. An older dog just dismisses a puppy as if it's not there. And then a lot of the behavior will stop. If the older dog comes back and snaps, if it snaps at the right time, it sends a real serious message. If it snaps all the time, the puppy just carries on playing, doesn't it? Hope you don't get a problem with this one. Is that, Graham's? Is that a little shit you've put up there, Graham?
Yeah, it's a poo.
A little poo. All right, yeah, remember that. Hope it doesn't eat its own poo, this one, Denver. So, what I was saying is, Richie Sunak is now apologising for the way that the military got treated because they were thrown out. Sue's laughing. She's laughing at something. I reckon she's laughing at Jeff Arroway.
Yeah.
Hard as nails. Ha ha ha. Love it. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah. Don't know what hard as freaking nails is. Wait till it reaches 12 months old and tell me it's hard as nails. Hard as nails. It can hack it. It can take it, and it loves it. The more you give it, the more it wants. I love those dogs. I love those dogs that are so forgiving, and yet they've got that enthusiasm to want to please. Want to please or do what they freaking feel right. No, it's just over enthusiasm, isn't it? Wouldn't you rather have a kid that gets into trouble, but it's really enthusiastic and it can take it and it becomes ardent in the right way for life? And then when it does go out there in life, it just freaking brushes everything off and goes, is that all you can throw at me? Because I learned how to cope with pressure. I learned how to deal with pressure. And if you think that's pressure, that's nothing compared to what I've learned to deal with. That doesn't mean you've got to be cruel to your kids. But that's exactly the same with today's dogs, isn't it? And that's exactly what Gary Wilkes was talking about. And I agreed 100%. And I wrote my own piece on it because I thought, what a fantastic part. There's more dogs being ruined out there by people who've done nothing but give them love and affection. More dogs have been ruined because they don't know how to cope with their life. They don't know what discipline is. They wouldn't know what to do with discipline except close down. And that is so important, isn't it? Jeff Arroway's dog was a bloody handful when I first met Jeff with that dog. It wasn't that we created a monster. He was a freaking monster. But I saw so much quality in that dog that by turning that dog round and molding that dog into what you want, you're going to have a dog of a lifetime. That doesn't mean it's not going to be easy with that nature of a beast. But the problem is they've bred softer and softer for the trial lines because they're going, no, we don't want to give discipline. We don't want to give correction. We don't want to be doing this. We want everything want to be positive. You can't train those dogs like Jeff's got if it's all positive. Trust me. Trust me. Does anybody on here, and a lot of you have watched, there's 26 people in here, a lot of you have watched Jeff's history of him and his dog, the story of Jeff and his dog. Do you honestly believe anybody on here think you could have trained that dog without discipline? Do you honestly think you could have trained that dog without discipline? Now you get the odd soft dog that you've got to nurture. You've got to coax. You've got to give time to grow up. But the difference is what would have happened to Jeff's dog? What would have happened to Jeff's dog? Jeff's dog would have gone from home to home to home to home.
And eventually had the needle.
and eventually had the needle, as Sue said, as a problem dog. That he gets put into a foster home. And I'm not saying Jeff would let him go, but what I'm saying is, how many dogs have I seen over the years that have gone into 3, 4, 5 homes, and they still have not got the right person to address the issues and sort it out? You and Sue must come to the Isle of Wight. We'd love some lessons. We could, Leanne, we could come to the Isle of Wight for our 50th wedding anniversary. I'll be 97. Sue will be 164. We raced to the Isle of Wight for our honeymoon, and we were on a hotel right looking over the coast. I don't remember the hotel. I just remember racing there in a BMW 323i with a telephone in the car that was like a proper telephone on a wire, and it was sitting in the center console. And I was the only person I know in the Southwest who had a 323i red with a center console telephone when I was a record in the record industry. And we raced to catch the ferry, and we caught the last ferry across. And I got into the honeymoon suite. The champagne was sitting there, very romantic, looking right over the coast. I'd worked all day. I then raced there at night, in the evening, to get there for the last ferry. And then I fell asleep on the bed after drinking some champagne on my honeymoon night. I've never lived it down. Sue said, you were useless on your honeymoon. Had a 323, good old motors, then would run all day. Yeah, 323i it was. Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? I've never lived it down because she said you fell asleep on a honeymoon. I made up for it when I woke up. All night long, we played Lionel Richie, didn't we, Sue?
That's something like that.
Although I love Cornwall. Oh, so we do. So do I.
Michael McLaughlin had a question. Is an extremely hard dog harder to train or a soft dog?
I think the harder dogs are easier to train because they're more forgiving. I think the softer dogs, the real sensitive ones, if you make a mistake, you can push them back so far, and it takes months for some of them to come out of themselves. And Christoval's young bitch is a fine example of that softer bits that you just got to give time to develop. And so you're waiting all the time from just showing you signs of maturity, showing signs of wanting to do it. I think the dogs that push boundaries and the dogs that are full of themselves, you can go in on them and make more mistakes as a novice trainer and get away with it because they don't hold baggage. And I think that's really important as well. It's like Sue. She's never allowed me to forget that honeymoon. I mean, we've been living together for how long? We've been living together before we got married.
About 2 years.
About 2 years. It wasn't like a one night stand. I wouldn't have. Not a one night stand. One night stand. What are you on about? Like at first time on your wedding night. No, it wasn't like that. I mean, I've been a horny little rabbit. I wasn't drunk, would I? It's just that I'd raced there, the adrenaline of racing there and getting there on time and getting across. I was absolutely knackered after working all day, and we literally raced away to get married, to have a honeymoon, didn't we, Sue? And so she's never let me forget that, but in the funniest of ways, not in a nasty way. She's never been spiteful, and call me limp dick or whatever. Limp dick. Only occasionally. Jeff says could have come unstuck. First trainer I met could have turned Benji into a nightmare. Exactly. But the thing is, as well, is like I'd like to go back to the Isle of Man.
White.
Isle of Wight, not the Isle of Man. I'd race around the Isle of Man, Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight. Fucking Isle of Man, I'd race around. Isle of Wight, I'd fall asleep. I'd like to go back to the same hotel, same room, and see if I fell asleep this time.
Yep.
Or if I just stood there in my suspenders and stockings and went. No, I was going to do a Rocky Horror number then for you. I was going to do a Rocky Horror number, but I thought better not. So never say never, Leanne. Never say never. We could. It would be nice to come across and see you with your dogs. It would be nice. So there you go. That's your hour. Chris Upton, another hour done. Another hour covered. And what have we talked about really in reality?
Life.
Life, says Susan. So there you go. Anyway, who's got the refugees at the moment in this freaking great big oh, that's Paul, isn't it? Dorset, Paul. They're going to Dorset.
Husband works on the ferry.
Oh, that'll be handy. He could hold it up for us if we're late. Anyway, on that note, Chris Upton signing off. Bollocks to you all. Susan's in the house. She's leaving as well. Red funnel. There you go. I think that's what it was, wasn't it? Red funnel. Good night, all. I bet Sue can't even name the hotel.
No.
There you go. Do you know what? Some women can remember everything, can't they? They can remember what they had to eat in the restaurant. Do you remember what you had to eat, Sue?
I remember breakfast, yeah.
She remembers breakfast. She remembers breakfast. I was all right at breakfast time. I'd come alive at breakfast time. What did you have for breakfast, Sue?
Kippers and poached egg.
Kippers and poached eggs. She remembers that bit.
And your face was a picture.
And my face was a picture. Bollocks to you all. Good night. Catch you all later. Chris Upton signing off with Susie Two Shoes in the background.